What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven here with your afternoon snap, and today I wanted to take a look at some of my favorite highlights with Hazmat Silver Surfer with a focus on cool Hazmat plays. That's what we're going to be looking at in this video, but I will definitely have some cool Silver Surfer plays in a future video. I've been having a ton of fun with this deck this season, and it hasn't received any nerfs in patches and OTAs, so I'm going to continue to play it as Infinity Conquest opens up next week, and I want to talk about the deck a little bit because I think it is a great choice for competitive Marvel Snap. In this game, into my opponent's Daredevil, I'm throwing down Mystique plus Hazmat to get things shrinking, and you can see we've got Luke Cage to flip some of these numbers back in our favor on the final turn. On turn 6, I'm going to go for an Odin on this green goblin that I just shrunk, try to send it back to my opponent's side of the board, and then that will still allow me to play Luke Cage plus Silver Surfer to impact all 3 lanes with a bunch of power. Unfortunately, the Odin hit a Professor X and a Nebula, but we're only losing that location by a little bit, and we're actually going to flip it like totally wildly in our favor with the Luke Cage and the Silver Surfer. That'll be enough to undo the Nebula buff. What I think is really cool here as well, my opponent hits me with Hood plus Annihilus on the final turn of the game, and they're actually going to give me a Daredevil, which I then also get additional power of. So going from losing all 3 locations here before this Luke Cage is flipped over, and then of course the Silver Surfer just gonna be a nice little cherry on top. In this game, we've got the full combo going off, and the combo is also really good against the Iron Man Living Tribunal decks, which are typically the top end in Marvel Snap, able to just generate some really crazy numbers. However, when you can Wong, Mystique, and shrink Iron Man down to negative numbers, you can actually get them to a point where they've got negative power at all 3 locations. So this is really cool. Just wanted to showcase this interaction in case people haven't seen it. Now what's going to happen is the Odin is going to trigger 4 times, each of those triggering Hazmat 4 times. So each of my opponent's cards is going to get afflicted minus 16 more times, which is going to lead to a very negative power Iron Man across all 3 locations there with the Living Tribunal. However, I forgot something. My opponent just played one of my cards, and it turns out I was actually getting a little bit spicy with this game. The first location here is Machine World, and I don't, typically Machine World is just a location that you want to avoid. However, when we have Olympia as our second location, there's actually a really interesting opportunity for me here because both of us now have a full hand, right? So now what I can do, we can see my opponent has 7 cards in hand as well. Now, as long as I play cards to Machine World, my opponent won't get to draw any more cards. Now, I don't actually have to play something this turn because my opponent doesn't have any 2-cost cards in their deck, or at least I thought. I forgot about Invisible Woman, but it's fine. They'll get 1 draw, and then next turn, we will be able to basically lock them out of draws for the rest of the game. Now, they already have 7 of the cards from their deck, 8 actually, because they played the Invisible Woman, but I thought this was a good opportunity to lock my opponent out of some options, and you might see where this is going. I felt the best card to play this turn was Luke Cage, and I'm actually going to snap as I throw down Luke Cage. The fact that my opponent didn't play anything last turn was what made me feel confident in this play, and now even if they do play something this turn, they're just going to get a Luke Cage in their hand. Cut to my opponent playing my Luke Cage against me. Didn't really think that one through, but you know what? It's funny. I think this is like the best and worst Luke Cage moments is maybe what I'm going to title this video, and this was definitely one of the worst moments for Luke Cage here, just giving my opponent a free get out of jail card. So they will wind up winning in this game, but I do come back to take the series. Looking good for a second. Negative 36 power, negative 32 power, and then all of a a sudden, yeah, they're beating me just barely, but they did get the win. This was a really back and forth matchup against a mill deck. You can see we are already in high stakes mode, and my opponent is going to snap that up to 4 cubes, really appreciating Luke's bar here, which is pretty good for mill decks. This turn, they're going to be able to throw down a cable into that location, stealing one of my cards, and then next turn they can continue to just get more value out of the cable. Plus, they got the Red Hulk already ticking up. So things are not looking super great for me here. We do have Magik, but we have to choose if we're going to get rid of Dream Dimension or Luke's bar. A little bit awkward. I'm going to get rid of Luke's bar because I don't want my opponent to steal every single one of my cards with cable. And it's a little bit awkward that my opponent has priority on this turn because that is going to return the cable to their hand, so they are going to be able to get even a little bit more value right now. Spider-Ham's also going to take out my Luke Cage, so this is unfortunately a Luke Cage highlight clip without the Luke Cage. Not really much of a Luke Cage highlight video if we are, but I thought that was a nice theme to round things up. So things are looking definitely not good for us. They use my Wong to play a Baron Zemo. We're going to use Ironheart to pump up Sebastian Shaw a little bit, but my opponent is going to steal really one really important card from my deck, Silver Surfer. That is definitely a bummer. Luckily, they do steal it in an okay order for us though, where at least the Silver Surfer doesn't pump the Brood, so we can maybe beat my opponent in Limbo, but that is a lot of points. And honestly, my first impression here, with only 2 turns left in the game, is it's going to be tough to beat my opponent in Limbo. I gotta play for both of these other 2 locations. Now, Sebastian Shaw is a ton of power in that center location. My opponent can't throw the Red Hulk there, but my opponent can throw the Red Hulk in Dream Dimension. So after thinking about this for another second, I'm gonna realize that I have to battle for Limbo, and Hazmat plus Absorbing Man plus Odin might actually be enough to do it. And what's also really clutch here, first off, my opponent did not steal my Luke Cage, so that's really good for me. The other thing that's nice is because my opponent is going to play Red Hulk this turn, they are still going to have priority going into the final turn of the game. We are tied 7-7 in Limbo, so I am going to be able to win that location. And if my opponent plays a bunch of cards into the big house, it's not like they can play one big card. They got to play a bunch of tiny cards. That means we're going to get multiple Hazmat triggers on them at this location, and I just thought this was a really fun and noteworthy way to end a Gold Conquest game here. So that was fun. That's why we are looking at the highlight. We're going to see the cable come down one more time, along with a bunch of other stuff. Cable not doing anything, Magik not doing anything. Shadow King actually does work for my opponent, but then we're going to shrink them 4 times to every 1 time we get shrunk, and grab an easy win in the big house. I wanted to look at one last game just to show an actual Hazmat high roll here. We also have a Silver Surfer high roll for 8 cubes in this one as well. So we did pretty good in this match, but with an 8 cube win, we still gotta get those last 2 cubes. This is a Gold Conquest, so my opponent not throwing in the towel just yet. We gotta battle it out for 2 cubes, and I wanted to show the Iron Man interaction that I brought up earlier. One thing that I also think is really fun about this game is just my restraint. I could play Hazmat this turn. My opponent does have priority, but I have the time to just play Hazmat next turn and just make sure that I'm getting full value out of it, because this deck can high roll, so I want to make sure I'm shrinking all of my opponent's cards as much as I possibly can here. Now they have priority again on turn 6. The fact that I am wasting some energy means that my opponent's Red Hulk is growing, but again, I'm going to continue to waste energy. I'm not even going to play a second card this turn. I could play Absorbing Man, not grow the Hulk. I could play like an Ironheart, grow some of my cards. However, if I play anything that isn't Luke Cage, I don't have Luke Cage this game. If I play anything else, it's just going to get afflicted with negative power a bunch of times. So instead, I'm just going to not play anything here, and I am going to just shrink my opponent a whole bunch of times. And my opponent could just play a huge Red Hulk into Iron Man Onslaught. If they do that, that is a risk for me this game, and I want to acknowledge that. So my opponent could have got me here. However, I think they are much more likely to make a play for all 3 locations, assuming I am going to play for all 3 locations, and that's exactly what happens here. They're going to play Jubilee into Crystal, there's the Luke Cage, and then just Invisible Woman to get a little bit more power in Limbo, which I'm then going to turn into a whole bunch of negative power. We're going to tie in that first Limbo location, and then in the third Limbo, I'm going to make my opponent go to extremely negative power, and then of course we are winning in the Great Portal because I didn't play anything. Just noticed my camera's frozen, but the video is over anyways. That's going to be it for me today. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace.